we're going to go ahead and start off with Crazy Rich Asians, which is now dropped in China.
Oh yeah, it took a little while to get over there.
Yeah, as a lot of movies do.
You know, it has to go through their official government, the review board. I don't know if it's a censor board. It's basically what it is. They censor out the movies they don't want coming into the country. And Crazy Rich Asians, as I understand it, was hung up for a few weeks.
Yeah. It's a whole thing with the Chinese government. They're very, very strict about what movies they allow into the country and they allow their people to see. It's a whole thing that we're not even going to get into because it's a whole other kind of podcast. But it did debut in theaters over there, and it did not do very well. And there's plenty of people that seem to be reacting like that's a surprise. But is that a surprise?
I don't know. It made like what, a 1.5, 1.2? Yeah,
1.2.
That's for the splash it made over here.
The domestic box office was 174. I believe it was a $50 million budget, something like that. Maybe not even that much. 174 domestic, 238 worldwide, 1.2 so far in China.
Dang. Yeah, so they are not feeling the film.
And I don't know, like I think it's a little bit ironic, like in a cultural aspect, because the central theme of that movie is someone not being accepted by the Chinese family that she's marrying into because she was raised in America and this is like a China-based family. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, you're not really Chinese, you're Chinese American.
Yeah, in Singapore too. Chinese in Singapore with a Chinese American descendant.
Because I mean, like, it's a romantic comedy, it's a love story. I actually thought it was a pretty decent romantic comedy with a lot of really great performances in it. But that's another thing that gets brought up is it is definitely like, even though it's made by an Asian American and it's heavily involving Asian Americans, that's the thing that keeps coming up. Is it because it's a movie for Asian Americans and not Asians?
I could easily see it being well, I would say I saw one of these people being interviewed. It was a Chinese person, and they brought up a really good point that I didn't think about. It's like, if you aren't Asian American and you don't have the past of not being accepted by the culture around you, and you don't have that experience of like, I want to belong and I'm not feeling the acceptance specifically maybe because of my race, because I'm an Asian American or a Chinese American,
right?
Maybe you won't sympathize with the main protagonist as much if you're just because in China, they don't have this problem because everyone's Chinese. And so there's been he said, this was just a random moviegoer at a film, but he was just saying maybe that's a reason it hasn't resonated in China's audiences. And
not only that, but I mean, a lot of the times people cite whenever comedies don't translate well, because comedies in general don't seem to translate that well in China specifically, but they say that maybe it's an issue of like, there's things that we as Americans find funny that other countries might not get. Mm-hmm. That could be something that plays into it. Another thing can be that, like China, they do make their own movies. They put out their own comedies, and their own comedies star entire Chinese casts. And maybe it's just not that big of a deal that it's a movie with, people of Asian descent, like in the cast.
Exactly. It's a big deal. By the way, this is a thing that...
It was a huge deal here.
It was a huge deal here because it was a Hollywood movie. It was a movie made in America, in the heart of where our movies come from.
And it was reviewed well by critics and audiences. It did very well at the box office.
Exactly. I heard a lot of people saying, oh, what about movies like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which did really well back in the early 2000s? And I was like, that's a fair point. That movie was really well received. That was an Asian movie made in Asia that made a huge splash in the West. This was a movie made in the West, in Hollywood, one of the most
Hollywood is,
it is what it is,
traditionally whitewashed and
exactly
all that stuff.
at all times. So that's it was the same reason we were celebrating Black Panther when that movie came out, or the reason
it was a PG-13 superhero movie in the larger Marvel universe, which is the most successful franchise of all time. Mm-hmm. And that was a big deal. That was a cornerstone. Crazy Rich Asians was a cornerstone. But really, like, hearing the news that it didn't do well in China, like my first reaction was like, huh. But then I thought about it and I was like, well, I guess I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
And I think all of that stuff, all that is why I wasn't surprised. But I think that the people who were surprised by it, I think that they were so surprised is just because of the the importance that the Chinese box office is starting to hold.
I know.
It's already number 2. Like we mentioned that before, that it's number 2. But what analysts are saying now is it's only a matter of time before it's number 1.
Yeah, and it's got such a strange impact on the market, or not on the market, but on the revenue that movies make.
Right.
Because movies that fail over here can rebound in China,
Like
and make
movies like The Mummy, the last Pirates movie.
Yeah, and those did terribly over here. That's weird. Maybe that's such a crazy phenomenon.
Well, they're into those spectacle kind of films from Hollywood. They like stuff that kind of feels foreign. Apparently, like Venom is doing fantastic over there.
That's what I heard. I was already made a
Venom's
few
making
hundred
more
million.
money. It's made well more there than it made here, and it made a lot here.
Wow, dang.
Yeah, it's ridiculous how much money that movie's making. But other movies that made a lot of money over there, Avengers: Infinity War made a shit ton. Mission Impossible Fallout did well over there.
I think one of the video game movies did well, like World of Warcraft. Yeah, that was it.
That was a
And
big
it
hit in
bombed
China
over here.
Oh yeah, nobody saw it here, but enough
would
people
wanna
saw
see
it
it?
there that I don't know. Maybe,
But yeah, maybe they're into spectacle movies.
But they're into that kind of stuff. That's why franchise movie making is definitely going to be the way of the future. Just because they know that they're going to be able to make some money out of China. Although they don't seem to like Star Wars that much, but a lot of these other franchise movies are big hits over there.
Yeah.
We're going to see more movies like The Meg. The Meg was definitely a movie that was made like it's a Western movie. Western audiences can see it and enjoy it, but they put a lot of stuff in there that's directed towards the Chinese audience.
That is so interesting that is going to be the thing that's affecting the movie industry.
That's going to affect the movie industry going forward, just because they are about to be the largest market for movies in the world.
Yeah, and I mean money talks.
That's exactly what it's going to be.
But wow. So I mean, I guess yeah, I had a similar reaction that you did. I was at first when they were like, "Oh, Crazy Rich Asians didn't do well in China." I was like, "Oh, that's surprising." But then you think about it, and you're like, "Okay, there's a lot of things where I could see this making sense. It not being the intended audience it was meant for, them not being able to relate to a lot of the issues, that them not even the country as a whole not understanding why people in the Western world might be celebrating this movie coming to light and being as successful as it has. Makes sense that it would just, and the last point you brought up.
It's a bigger deal here than it is there. There's no other way to put it. It's a bigger deal here for very obvious reasons. And
it was competing against their own movies that came out, produced for them, made for them, especially in the comedy genre. I could easily see, because a spectacle movie, if you're going to see The Meg or if you're going to see World of Warcraft, the dialogue that's being spoken is almost arbitrary sometimes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, it's great that the Marvel Universe can pull it off, but a lot of these movies can't, and that's not necessarily why people are at the movie.
Exactly. But like comedies, romantic comedies or other types, thrillers or psychological dramas, I could see those maybe not translating as well.
Oh, yeah.
Against their homegrown movies that are made in their language and for their culture,
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's going to have a hard time competing over there. And ultimately what I'm seeing a whole lot more over here is a lot more of those movies just end up going straight to streaming. Mm-hmm. So I guess they'll always have a home there.
Yep. Yeah. Hey, that might be the home pretty soon.
Yeah, it's kind of looking like it. Just, we're going to, have, as this one guy says, Avengers 97, I think he said. Avengers Part 97. But anyways, what do you guys think about this? Drop us a comment down below and holler at us.
Holla.
Holla, holla.
Holla at us.